Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Home's Room is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor by Spotify is a total package podcast tool from getting started to distribution, in-app editing, and much more. They even help you monetize your podcast. All of that for free. With a web and mobile-based app, recording anywhere on anything is a breeze. Get your voice heard with Anchor by Spotify. In this world, you are short a few things. One of them is loss. In class with us today is someone who took that loss and not only grew from it, but is also putting their grief out there to help others grow as well. Caitlin, I'm going to let you decide what people are going to call you, because I believe so much that, you said branding as a married woman and last names and all that. I want you to decide what people can call you, simply because your voice is the one that matters today. So you get to tell people what you're called.
Wow, Matt, not a whole lot of the people in my life get to tell me that. My name is Caitlin. For the purpose of this interview, please just call me Caitlin. I've published a book under the name Caitlin Rife, which is my maiden name, but I am on all my social media handles are Caitlin_Uding, because I got married, and that's my wonderful, fantastic husband's last name.
There you go. All right. Mm-hmm. So first, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being brave enough to tell us and anyone who reads your book the story that you're about to tell us and let us in on. I can't imagine what you've been through, and my heart goes out to you for sure. And I'm glad that you are where you're at now, because a lot of people might not be. So thank you for that. I just wanted to start off by getting that out there.
Thank you, Matt. This is actually like the first book interview that I'm doing. So I'm awesome. Very much still learning. I feel really lucky that the universe gave me you to interview me about my book. But yeah, I just recently released a book on Amazon. I self-published. It's called Lessons I Learned from Two Dead Parents. So I know the title already has big feelings behind it, which is kind of what I wanted. A little bit about me. I grew up just south of St. Louis. In 2008, my family was coming home from a vacation in Lake of the Ozarks. We got a flat tire on our boat trailer and a semi actually on 44 outside of Union, Missouri, which I don't know if you know where that's at, Mike. Matt, sorry. A semi actually ran off the road and hit us while we were disabled on the side of the highway. So from 14 on, I was raised, I have a brother who's 12 years older than me. So that's a fun dynamic as is, who I adore completely. And I have a younger sister who's 16 months younger than I am. But so by the time the accident happened, my brother was out of the house and married with beautiful children. And my sister-in-law is the glue that keeps us together. But from 14 on, my sister and I, who was 12 at the time of the accident, we were raised by my dad, who was a widow, who was a federal agent, who later was a police officer, and then unfortunately it's assumed line of duty exposure to COVID in January of 2022, so pretty recently. He actually ended up contracting COVID and passed away as well. So a lot of loss that I've faced, and I decided that it has to mean something. I can't just be dealt these cards and not do something good with it. So I wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
And my book is 10 lessons that I learned from both my parents dying.
So that is exactly why we have you here today, is because you embody what message needs to be out there is no matter what hand you've been dealt, there's always a way. And one of the other interviews I did, we kept talking about the term pivot, and that meaning, when something happens, you can wallow in it, you can sit there, you can throw your arms up and just say, well, I'm going to sit on the couch, or, well, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to do this. Or you can decide that there has to be some sort of meaning in it. There has to be some sort of, something that I can grow from. And here you are. And that's why, a podcast is called Holmes Room, where, we're about learning. Every day is a class, and you definitely, took that approach. Like I said, the running theme here is, people braving it all to do something positive for the world. And I can't, like, you clearly, fit that bill. And I just wonder, what pushed you to write a book?
Honestly, what pushed me to write a book was fundraising. Every dollar of revenue I get is going towards a nonprofit that my siblings and I started in memory of our dad. It's called Operation Sheepdog. We come from a law enforcement military family, and already maybe your listeners have a certain connotation about the words that just came out of my mouth. There's big feelings involved with everything law enforcement, especially since, the George Floyd incident and everything that's happened after that. So we established this nonprofit. Our dad was generous and kind, and he was a law enforcement instructor. He was a teacher. He believed in teaching. So Holmes Room, teaching, those were the ideas. He was so generous with his time, generous with his knowledge, and we want to make sure that spirit continues. So we are just now getting started with it, and every dollar of it goes. But it started as a fundraising thing, but it has grown into something so much bigger. For me personally, writing a book was way more helpful than any type of therapy that I've tried. And man, I would have saved a lot of money on therapy had I written that book sooner. But for me, it was it started as a list, a bullet point list that I made in the car on the way to going to my in-laws' house one Sunday. And that was the outline of my book. And I didn't realize it at the time. It was just something that I was feeling really introspective about and wanted to see what happened. But it turned into a book because I wrote the book that I wish that I had at 14 when my mom died.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's parallels. So we didn't know each other prior to this morning, actually, just so everybody out there can see where this is going. So this is a completely new conversation. I try and do some research on people I get on here, so I know a little bit about you. You probably know a little bit less about me, but parallels. I am a writer. I have 3 books I put out myself.
Really?
2. One is in the works, and I talk about it enough on here that I'm not gonna bring it up. But the reason I wrote my books is I was unemployed. I worked at a movie theater with my wife. A company bought us out. We weren't going to be able to be on staff together because we were married, and that was going to be their rule. So one of us had to go. And obviously I wasn't going to be the dickhead husband that was like, well, babe, you got to go because I'm going to stay. So I said, obviously if we have to choose, it's me. Like I'll find something else. And I got, super depressed, and I decided that I was going to, start trying to write. And I was having nightmares, and my nightmares were zombie fueled, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Couldn't figure out why and what it meant. So I started doing research on what dreams meant. And I discovered that, like, some weird way my brain was creating zombies were equaling the problems I was going through. And I was trying to save everybody in my group from these problems, ultimately making myself, the one that ends up getting it. I couldn't save them, and I ended up not being able to save myself. So I started to put those things that were happening into a book and wrote, a zombie apocalypse series. So that's
oh my gosh.
For you. So this is why, the universe fated this to happen, and I'm glad you're here.
But Matt, weird parallels too. The only 2 things that I have vivid nightmares about, like wake up in the middle of the night, cold sweat, are floating in space, not attached to anything, and zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
So are you watching The Last of Us?
I am not. I'm one of those people that, like, I didn't play the game. However, I want to watch it, but I want to wait until enough episodes are out that I can binge it,
Yeah.
and I don't get like distracted or, well, this episode wasn't as good as last week, so I'm
Yes.
gonna and then I miss a week. Like
Mhm.
there's a show. This is a completely not related to zombies, but there's a show called La Brea on NBC, and
Ooh.
it's garbage TV realistically. But if you like, we set our DVR, we let like 7 or 8 episodes record,
Mhm.
and then we can just binge it, and it's good because we can just go straight into the next one.
Yeah.
Where if you had to wait for that, you would. I don't know that you would keep coming back. It does have another season coming, which means that it is doing well, but it's definitely not great TV, but it's interesting. So yeah, parallels.
Quality doesn't always matter, you know. Sometimes we just need to see what the TV wants to show us.
Exactly. That's kind of where I was at. But I think it's interesting that you chose to write, and you said that you wish you had started writing sooner because of how much it helped. And I think that when it comes to expressing communication in any form, sometimes writing is better than anything else because you're getting the words out there, but you don't hear them. And you can change the word. If that sentence just burns you up, you can look at it and ask yourself, well, why does it burn me up, and change it. Or you can just be like, it burns me up, but that's how I feel. And it's a level of acceptance. And I think that when it comes to writing true feelings, and especially the way that you wrote, I think that you probably had countless experiences with that. And I think that that's huge.
I definitely went through that. I had originally, first time publisher, small author. I wanted to self-publish because I didn't want my message to be filtered through a publisher.
Yeah.
I'm a control freak, but also this is so important to me that I didn't want anybody else to, have their fingers in something that was so vital and important and deep and meaningful for me. So I self-published. And then I wanted it to be a good quality product. So I actually hired an editor who took my money, ran, and ghosted me.
Yeah, that happens. That happens. Mm-hmm. Writers, be careful with that. It happens.
Yes. And, we found each other through a Facebook group. I wanted to help out a smaller editor who was trying to build her portfolio. I don't know what ended up happening. I have no ill will towards them, but it helped me. It ended up helping me because I actually, I sat down and spent more time with the manuscript editing it before I released it. So I was never going to release it if I waited for it to be fully perfect. I went to grad school, so I had to deprogram from academic writing. And that was very, very painful and difficult for me to do in the first place. So I definitely had to deal with some feelings and deal with, all of the writing things in your brain of like, why did you write this? You're so bad. Nobody's going to read this. But all I did was post about it to my personal Facebook. I just posted about it to my village, my people. I said, I'm sending out the bat signal. I need my village. Buy my book. And the next day, my book was on number 4 for new releases in the grief and bereavement category. Yeah. My village is there. Thank you. And, I'm learning so much about self-publishing, so I don't actually know how many books were sold yet because they don't actually hit the reports until they're shipped. So I don't know. Yeah. It's all been incredible. It's been insane.
That is amazing. Congratulations, because not only is self-publishing hard enough, but self-publishing and getting, support from people is like next to the impossible. And the fact that you were able to do that, and you had people rally around you, I think that is absolutely phenomenal.
Do you hear my zoo downstairs?
Kind of, but honestly, that's one of the things that I love. My co-host, I have a co-host that pops on every once in a while, and she had her cat. We were recording something, and her cat knocked over a can right next to her setup, and it was so funny. And I believe in authentic. I believe in organic, and if people have something to say about you having a life and it not being perfectly quiet. Uh,
Yes.
let me go to your house and I guarantee it's either the most boring place or it's like a museum and I wouldn't want to touch anything and I would feel uncomfortable. So,
Absolutely, Matt. Oh, you're wonderful.
uh, true story. My mom is, she's a neat freak in certain terms. When we were children, we got in trouble for not cleaning up the living room. I have two older sisters. We used to have a bunch of cousins around. She roped off our living room because we didn't clean it up. So she cleaned it and said, nobody can go in here, and roped it off. So we used to go step over the rope and act like statues because it was just funny to us. So I grew up in that kind of an environment where like things could had to be pristine,
Yeah.
but I'm not that way anymore. Life is life.
Yes. And, I talk about it in my book, but my upbringing is anything less than. I didn't relate with a lot of girls my age.
Mhm.
My dad was federal agent. One of my very first jobs, he was a regular at a cigar shop here in St. Louis, which is still open and I still go to and I love, the Hill Cigar Company in the Italian part of St. Louis on the Hill. If you're ever in St. Louis, absolutely check it out. The Missouri Baking Co. Wonderful, wonderful food. But
Shout outs.
oh, absolutely, they're so good. Chocolate drop cookies, dang. But I was 18 years old, working in a cigar shop with a bunch of cantankerous old cops.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting, and it made me tough and it made me resilient. And, I'm a data analyst in the law enforcement field now. And, I got my bachelor's degree. I have my master's degree, but working in that cigar shop with the cantankerous old retired cops who made me tough prepared me more for this field than any of my college degrees did. So I think that helped me a lot from a young age. But my dad too, we had such an incredible relationship. Maybe not at first, because obviously we all had very big feelings about mom passing
Mm-hmm.
away. And I was a freshman in high school, which was such a critical time for brain development, emotional intelligence development, all the things. On top of that, he was from maybe a generation in a family who don't have the same philosophy about mental health and treating mental health that I do now in
Mm-hmm.
adulthood. So we didn't go to therapy right away. We witnessed, and also anybody that's interested in my book, I do want to issue a trigger warning for the second chapter because it goes into some detail about the accident that killed my mom. And it was a lot for a 14-year-old, for anybody, but especially a
Yeah.
14-year-old to see. So my niece is the same age that I was right now when my mom died. And it makes my heart hurt for the past version of myself that had to deal with that. But going through high school with just a dad and somebody that I needed to rely on and was close, he was all I had. So, when I needed to make doctor's appointments to get on birth control for the first time, I just walked up to dad and said, "Hey, will you make me a doctor's appointment?" And I talk about it in my book. I had girls at the lunch table like the next week that were like, "You did what? You said what? You talked about what with your dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, so it's definitely affected my life, and it's brought up a lot of fun emotional big feelings in motherhood too, especially after my dad's gone. I had a whole ass other kid since my dad's been
Oh, wow.
gone. Yeah, and we just recently last month had the 1 year of his passing. And real big feelings, big
Yeah.
emotions, a lot of pregnancy hormones. I actually found out I was pregnant exactly 4 weeks from the funeral.
Oh, wow. Man, that's
So I was like, oh, I was lost in my grief. And then I was like, oh, crap, I got to do this pregnant too, which ended up, I think, working out perfectly for what I needed in that moment. Because before I found out I was pregnant, I was using, tobacco, nicotine, and alcohol to cope,
yeah.
which was not great at all. So to each their own, but I definitely want to tell as many people about the pitfalls that I fell into.
Yeah. Like I said, being authentic. One thing I did want to say, and you were talking about, everybody's got feelings about law enforcement and everything like that. I come from you know, intermixed military family as well.
Hmm.
My uncle was NYPD for as long as I can remember, and he was still, doing everything he was doing when 9/11 happened.
Oh
So
gosh.
I'm not one of those people that if you have opinions about something, that's your opinion, but doesn't it doesn't need to be something that stamps on somebody else's. And if you have issues with law enforcement, remember that they're people too.
Hmm.
They're capable of mistakes, they're capable of flaws, but there's also people that are capable of, great triumph and, support. And I know that my uncle was like a second father to me. So
Mm.
I respect that man just like, just like a father. So I know there are two sides to coins, and I think people need to give a little bit more space to that. But as you were just saying, the finding out that you're pregnant, like that's like, wow. That's I as a guy, I can't really like process that in that way. All I
Trust
can
me,
say
I
is
can't. I still can't even process that I got two kids, so it's okay.
and then like you were saying, growing up with just your dad at pivotal times, and I'm a girl dad, and I have two. I love them, and I'm glad that I have two girls.
Mhm.
And people ask all the time. My oldest is 13. She's about to be 14 this year. I tell people all the time, this is the time in their life that I was excited for, that I
Mhm.
wanted to be a parent for, because this is when they develop into the people they're going to be. And
Yeah.
I have the ability to send them on a trajectory. And I think that more dads need to be dads to their daughters and not fathers. There's a drastic difference. And I want to go, to a college, hang out, or, a bar because she comes home for break, and, just to have a drink with her as, friends, because we fostered a good relationship. And it very much sounds like, your dad did everything he could to try and still be a dad while struggling alone. And I think that not only is that like inspiring, but it also, seeing somebody that was able to still commit to everything they had to commit to, still try and make ends meet, and still try and be as supportive as they probably could while
Mhm.
not having very much support going back their way. That's huge. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
I. It was one of those things where I wish I would have wrote it earlier so that I could have picked his brain for some of the things. Like, there's probably stuff in my book I got wrong.
it. Hmm.
There's, timeline wise, history wise, how my parents met, all the things. I did my best. I did my research. Part of my research involved going back and reviewing the crash scene report. Um,
Yeah.
we had so much family that were gravely concerned about us that once a week and then twice a month eventually, my dad would send out updates, weekly email updates, which he treated as kind of a diary.
Yeah.
So those kind of helped guide me through the aftermath of all of it. But especially being a wife and a mother of two, I've got two under 18 months. Pray for me, Matt, I'm tired.
I bet.
But now in adulthood, I wish I would have taken the opportunity to just pick his brain, because now I was completely floored by the man that he was while he was alive, and now I'm just completely floored by his legacy. He lost the love of his life and had to raise two teenage daughters
Hmm.
by himself. What? You know,
Yeah.
it's just as it floored me, and it was definitely something that I didn't even start to think about or process until I actually did sit down and write this book. So I was thankful for that.
The fact that you're using this to support a not for profit, and to try and bring awareness to things, it that in itself shows the woman that he raised, and the direction that you were going in. And I think that that's no small thing. I know I I am in the process. Like I said, I have a 13-year-old. I would love for her to be an athlete, but God help her, she ain't an athlete. She just isn't.
Mm-hmm.
We tried that road, did not work. No more early Saturday morning cold soccer games for that one.
Mm-hmm.
But she loves art, and right now I'm pushing her to, if you love art, follow it, do it, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
situation is. I want you to find something you're passionate about and just stick to it. Doesn't matter what it is. And the other day, she brought out a drawing that she traced the outline, and then she said, I'm going to color it in. And I said, okay. So she comes back and she shows me the hair that she just shaded in, and it looked really good. And she was like, that took me like 45 minutes to do all of this. And it's not very big. So I was like, I mean, but it looks good. And then she walked away. And she comes back like an hour and a half later and she said, I just did the skin. That shading took me like an hour. And I was like, I mean, it looks good though. I like where it's going. And obviously at that point, I can't really tell what it's going to end up looking like, but I know that what she was doing was good. And then she comes back maybe an hour after that and it's completely done. And I posted it to my Instagram and Facebook because it is so good. And I've been trying to tell her, just practice it. The art that she did was so good. I told her, I don't care if your chores aren't done. I don't care if your room's not clean. If you come out with art that looks like this and this is what you've been doing, I'm good. I don't care, because this is you pushing your craft. This is you doing the thing that you wanted to do. And I want to support that thing, because like, what else should I do? Should I be like, you need to put that pen and paper down, when people are out there making thousands of dollars off of one NFT image that
Yeah.
isn't
Oh my
real?
God.
Like it just becomes it's so wild to me that art can be something now. When I was younger, art was like laughable to try
Yeah.
and make money at, and now people are making rainbow tassely things of like bottle caps and selling them for like $15-20 a piece, and it's trash, it's recycled things, and they're making money off of it. So by all means, I want to support that.
Oh
And it
yeah.
sounds very much like you grew up in an environment where you were given the right things at the right time, and I think that that's what creates this bubble of your outlook on life, but also your ability to cope and process. Your grizzled old man in a cigar shop maybe taught you a little bit more emotionally than what people would think, that and it might have been like an annoying situation here and there while you were there, but now all those little lines crossed in the right way to make it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's now I'm sitting here thinking about it. It's insane to me. I grew up just south of St. Louis, and we talk about 9/11. I was in second grade when 9/11 happened, but a couple years after that, the Twin Tower movie with Nicolas Cage came out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you've ever seen it, but first of all, I learned that Nicolas Cage looks awful in just a mustache.
Yeah, I would agree with
But
that one.
I was in fourth grade when that movie came out. I think I was like in fourth or fifth grade, and my dad and my mom drug us to the movie theater to watch that movie. And it goes into detail, and it talks about the firefighters that were stuck in the rubble and later rescued. And it's just incredible. And my mom worked for Veterans Affairs, and she actually got to meet the survivors of the tower collapse after they were
Mm-hmm.
buried in the rubble as firefighters. And it's incredible. But also working in that cigar shop in St. Louis, hearing all these cantankerous old cops, retired cops, talk about everything that they disagreed with under the Obama administration, which was not a shortage of things that they didn't like, you know.
Yeah.
But also, when I was a freshman in college, Ferguson happened, and I
Yeah.
was 3 hours south of Ferguson, glued to the TV, watching the town that I loved burn and feeling all the big feelings. On top of that, I was also very fortunate to be in the command post with the Denver Police Department when all of the George Floyd riots were happening in Denver. Big feelings,
Yeah.
big events, big emotions, all huge events that turned trajectory, pivoted, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah.
helped pivot. And those types of events, that my parents dying were just additional events. It's just the timeline of my life is marked with these giant events that I just saw, and I see, and I just can't do nothing about. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's mental illness, Matt, or if it's just my personality. I don't know what it is, but when I see incompetency, and especially injustice,
Hmm.
oh, it just doesn't sit right well with me.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's one of those things for me. Like, as an African American male in a country that devalues a lot of the things that I can do, I I could accept that, or I could, like I tell people all the time, my life expectancy where I grew up is dead or in jail by 18.
Mm.
And that's, to me, when I graduated high school, I beat the odds right then. So what am I living for at that point? I have this extra time that I wasn't supposed to get. And I could sit here and, make dumb decisions and keep going down dumb paths. Or I can say, you know what? Like, let me try and do something, and to be somebody that like people can be proud of, or people can rally behind and say, that guy is a solid dude, and I love that guy. I want that guy to succeed. And I'm always at a loss. I enjoy anybody that has something to say, and their convictions are just be a good human being. Like, the rest of it doesn't matter. Just be
Mm.
a good human being, and uh, I think that no matter what life hands you, there's always a thing that can be learned from it. Like I said, every day's a class. Whatever you do, even if it's you don't you don't fail at something, you learn how not to do something else. You learn what you should have done better. You learn what you could do differently to have a more favorable outcome. You only fail in your mind because that's your mind telling you you're not good enough.
Hmm.
And that's not the voice that, I would hope any parent is telling you. So that shouldn't be your guiding light. That's not the voice any supporter is telling you. So like, it shouldn't be the thing that you draw solace in. You should look around and say, well, that didn't work. What maybe works? I don't, it may take a day, it may take a week, but definitely grab those bootstraps and pull yourself back up.
Yeah, but and that's why I'm so encouraged. You say bootstraps, you say the inner voice, you say what the world's gonna, and it resonated with me when you're saying, like, to your daughter, I don't care if your room's clean, I don't care if your chores aren't done. Do this.
Yeah,
This is your talent. This is a craft.
absolutely.
The world is going to beat that out of her, and it is
Yeah.
your job as her parent to encourage that. And I'm just starting to do that with my own children. My daughter's, she's just now starting to learn how to speak.
Yeah.
She's I'm very lucky with the childcare that I have, the daycare that she goes to. They love her there. They encourage her creativity, all the things. Um, the world the world is going to try and beat the resilience out of her, and it is an act of rebellion at this point for me. For the cards that I was dealt with, it is an act of rebellion for me to take the cards that I was dealt and turn around and do something good, be something good, and try to be a good person when
Absolutely.
all the circumstances of my life, statistically, I'm a data analyst, I went to school for data analysis. Statistically, I'm not who I'm supposed to be,
Yeah.
and granted, don't get me wrong, I had my lows. I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with self-harm. I've struggled with disordered eating tendencies, all those things. I've struggled through all of that. I'm saying this as someone who's almost 30 and has spent the majority of her life, over 15 years, over 14, 15 years, grieving. To me, it's second nature to grieve. Not everybody gets that, has that. And I also, when I sat down to like figure out how I was going to market this book, I was like, okay, here's the thing. Everybody's going to learn something from this book, because you either experienced massive unexpected loss or trauma, or you're going to someday.
Yeah.
That's how life is, you know?
Uh, and again, from the little bit that I've heard, the little bit that I know, I can't stress that part enough, is at some point in time, everybody's going to have to deal with it. And we recently did an episode on why do you fall in love with potential, and this is like the flip side of that coin, that what happens once potential has been met and there's no more, and it's the whole, what do you do after that? And I think that your approach to what it was is, you started kind of putting something together. Like you said, it was like 10 bullet points, right? That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 10 bullet points became, maybe 100 words, and 100 words became, the start of a book, and the start of a book became, maybe, 20,000 words to begin. And at that point, it was like, I'm starting.
I wanted it to be an easy read. And the editor that I hired, the one thing that she did tell me before she ran
I'm
off,
golf clapping. Nobody can hear that. I'm golf clapping for that. That's easy reads, people. Easy reads. Yes. Anyway, continue.
I wanted it to be an easy read because I wanted it to be something that everybody could relate to. And that's why I product plug Grammarly Premium.
Yeah.
Pay for it. Spring for it. It will tell you so much about your writing and validate the parts that are good and validate the parts that are bad too. I know for a fact that everybody who picks up my book, as long as they can understand anything at an 8th grade reading level, they'll like it.
There you go.
They'll understand it. They'll understand it. Maybe they won't like it. That's okay too. Not everybody's gonna like my book, and again, I'm okay with that too. But my book is only 25,000 words.
Oh wow! Yeah, there you go. Definitely easy read category. Yeah.
It's and typically for a memoir style book, the one thing that my editor did tell me is typically memoirs start around 30,000 words. And again,
I don't like that word count thing. My books are like technically novellas because they're just short enough. They don't count as a novel. And it's like, I'm not going to classify it as anything. So like, if that's what you want to do and it has to be classified as something, fine. But like, I didn't want something that was like, I think there may be like right at 50,000 or just over 50,000 words or something like that. And it's, I don't know.
That's an achievement in its.
Yeah, I don't need, that isn't, my goal is to put them all 3 in one book when they're all done. So you can buy it and read it as a whole chunk.
Yes.
But like, I don't need them to be long reads because I don't like long reads. I don't want to read long reads.
We're also a parent. Do you have the time to sit around and enjoy a long read? I know I definitely don't anymore.
No.
But
I'm just doing research for podcasts now. Like, no, I don't have time to read.
Absolutely. But I, again, with the word counts and titles and all things too, that was one thing that I really didn't subscribe to, or, I'm so glad that I did self-publish for that reason alone, because I'm in some Facebook groups for aspiring writers. I want to help. I want to give advice. I want to validate and encourage other people like me who have no idea what the heck they're doing. But there are so many writing elitists. Did you even know that was possible?
Yeah, gatekeepers. I hate them. No, not a fan.
It just blew my mind too. It made me nervous to even reach out and ask for support or encouragement or advice from some of these groups because, oh, well, your word count needs to be like this, or, oh, your passive voice use, like this, that, whatever. I'm like, if I waited until, like, I wrote this book in a year. I wrote, edited, and hit publish in a year. And to me, I'm honestly quite baffled. I still believe, I stand behind it. I still think it's a great quality book too.
Good.
But also, if you're reading my book and that is about the lessons that I learned from 2 dead parents and what you walk away from it with is, oh, well, there was a space before this one period on page 13. I'm like, all right, well, you're not my intended audience anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of those things, and you might get a kick out of this. My dream, and this is a big dream, lofty dream. My dream is to create a network of actually supportive people in the writing space. So editors that are looking for editing work, maybe they haven't gotten a ton of stuff, but they want to be there, and their goal is to actually help writers become better writers, not just clerically edit, but like actually help writers become better writers. Writers that want to help out other writers in storytelling, where maybe, I enjoy that you are doing this, but maybe try this. And I'm not telling you to try it because I'm right and you're wrong. I'm telling you to try it because as I was reading it, this is what I was feeling. This is what I was thinking. And this is a little bit of a direction that I might have gone. And maybe it works for you. Maybe it doesn't. Illustrators that, that want to work with writers, but can't find stories they believe in or stories that spark them. Just a whole group of networking people, but actually supportive. And I want to gatekeep it to the point where as soon as you say anything elitist, as soon as you say anything to like competitively put somebody down because your work is better and they have to listen to you, you get the boot. I don't got time for it. If you're not here to support, I don't got time for you. If you're gonna, it's like a waste of time to me. I don't like
Am
that.
I allowed to join this club?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's one of the reasons I started a podcast is I was like, man, I want to talk to people and I want to network and I want to meet people and hear their stories. And, we've like veered off far from my like list of questions, but it's
okay.
because it's a good organic thing. And I think that, you get it. You understand like you said, like writing elitist. I remember the first critique I got about my book was, these sentences aren't structured correctly. And in my head, I was like, correctly to what? And then I realized what they were saying was my writing style specifically is my characters talk, or I should say speak how I talk. So I write how I talk. And I did that with a distinct purpose so that it's easier to understand, because it doesn't read where instead of saying can't, I say cannot, because that gives people like me with dyslexia a pause, because I'm trying to put the words together in the sentence, but it doesn't read that way. I try and make it, for lack of a better word, like fun, where it sounds like you have siblings. So I'm sure the two siblings in my book, they bicker. And when they bicker, it shouldn't sound proper. They're not speaking to each other properly. They're bickering. So it should sound that way. And if it's not going to sound that way, then then it's not real. And that is one of the biggest critiques I get, but it's also one of the biggest compliments I get. And, it's like, that's fine. I know what I wanted to write. I know how I wanted to write it. And if you don't like it, this means you already bought it. So thank you. I got your money.
Thanks for those royalties and the compliment.
Exactly.
Take that insult as a compliment.
Yep.
If it's not constructive or kind education, whatever. But with I also struggle with my voice, my personality coming through in my writing. So much so that actually, fun fact, my husband has sat down and tried to read my manuscript no less than 25 times throughout this entire writing process, and he can't get through it. And it's been a super interesting thing for us as a married couple to start navigate too, because he's reading this, he's hearing the story, he can hear my voice in his head saying the words, and he wants to jump right into fix it mode because I go into he's heard everything that's in that book. Obviously, we've talked a lot about it. It's the first time that he's sitting it down and reading a book. And as I'm saying this, I can't even imagine, like, you sit down and your significant other slides this book to you and is like, here's all my massive trauma. Please read and give me back your feedback. So he's still trying. I get it, but
that's hard.
It's so hard. Yeah. And a personal thing that I've had to struggle through as well is, it feels like I haven't gotten a ton of support, but also it's hard. That's really hard for anybody who knows me personally, anybody in my life to read. it's probably a lot easier for people who don't know me to stomach and chew through the message of my book.
That's interesting. That's
Mm-hmm.
an interesting. I wouldn't have thought about it that way, but that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I I am excited to read it, but the more I get to know you, the more I'm like now that you saying that, the more I I can see your, you know, your smile. I can see your joy come through the screen. I can hear your voice, you know, in the humor in what you're taking out of something. And I think it would be hard to separate that. And if I knew you as well as they do, I can't imagine how hard it would be to be like, you know, it's almost like watching a love scene with like awkwardly with your parents when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like that. This is a weird moment and I don't know, I want to feel good, but I don't want to, you
Matt,
know,
the first R-rated movie I ever sat down and watched with my dad was Step Brothers, so I get it.
yeah.
But, you know, and here's the thing, too. The timing of this interview, I had my village. They order my book. First copies just started shipping out yesterday, Matt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
My people haven't even read it. So I'm a little nervous. You know, the feedback, the reviews, that whole process of it hasn't even started. It was just such a haul and such a heavy, big feeling topic that it felt like an uphill battle to even get it out into the world. And now it's out to the world. Just like hitting publish isn't the finish line, now starts the next part of the marathon and the next part of the race.
Thank you for saying that. This is one of the things that anybody that's an aspiring writer out there, anybody that, you know, is thinking about getting their work published or self-publishing, whatever it is, once it's out there, it is up to you. It lives, and it's going to live as the life that you kind of give it. And ultimately, like, there's only so much control you have over that. Like, I know for me, my advertising has fallen off, but it's because I haven't been able to release my third one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to capitalize on a bunch of stuff and then not be able to release the third one and then have years between it. So it's like, I'm fine if they slow down and I don't do anything. And then I make another big push, because when I make big pushes, I do notice the, you know, the sales, I do notice the people reading it. I do notice the, you know, all that stuff. But once you hit publish, it becomes like level 2, or, you know, like the game that you just finished playing has already released another game, and this one is a little bit harder and has less instructions. Because
and it is so funny that you say that, because that is a great analogy for also what happened after both my parents died, because I talk about it in my book. It's not like the funeral is the finish line and then everything's good. No, funeral's over, food stops coming, everybody goes back to their regular normal life, and you are stuck trying to figure out, with this giant gaping hole and the world returning back to normal, you're stuck trying to figure out what this new definition of normal even is. And grief and loss and all of that, it's like the big boss that's the funeral, and all the family drama and the dramatics of family members. God, trust me, I had that. Okay. That's one big boss. The next, his like level supervisor way up is trying to figure out what your life looks like after the funeral, when all you have is your close circle and the people that make an effort to check in on you, and all of that. It's a marathon, and your entire sense of normalcy and a huge part of your personal identity is now ripped away from you, and dealing with the aftermath and the pieces of that are left behind is hard.
Yeah.
Hard.
I can't imagine. I don't, thinking about it in terms like that, I definitely wouldn't have, you know, it's not something I've personally had to think about. I mean, I can't, you know, the way that a movie depicts this is as close as some people have gotten, where it's like, you know, oh, this is the part where, you know, they find their love interest, or this is the part where, you know, that one funny guy pops in the room to try and lighten the mood a little bit. And it's not like that. And the day to day is now shifted from almost, I would imagine, almost like a wedding. Like everything is get to the wedding. Once the wedding happens, then I can just breathe. But in reverse, where it's like, okay, get to the funeral, and now the heavy weight is on just my shoulders in a way that I have to figure out how to navigate it. And that's, that's heavy. That's definitely a lot
So
heavier.
go to therapy, everyone.
I like it. I like it. Good plug. Something I did want to ask you is, did you have a writing background? You said you had to switch gears from grad school to, writing this book. Did you have a writing background before?
Only academic. I got my bachelor's degree in 2016, and then I went immediately to grad school, which is 2 years. And when I finished graduate school, I did research on recreational marijuana legalization and crime in Denver. So also plug my master's thesis is out there if anybody wants to read it. But that was the biggest, heaviest haul. And man, I'm thankful I went through my master's thesis. That was the only other book that I've written, but it's so much more than that. It's a haul, and everything you do sucks. The red pen is everywhere. And honestly, that was my academic and writing version of working in the cigar shop. That made me tough. Like, feedback doesn't scare me. Constructive criticism, I welcome, as long as it's kind and meant from a well-intentioned place. Red pen my manuscript. Random strangers on the internet that I may never meet in person. If you see a typo in my manuscript, send me a DM on Instagram. Let's talk about it. Like, it's not going to be perfect. But if I waited for it to be perfect and got the 100% perfect validation from other people, it was never going to exist outside my brain.
That's one of those things that I believe as a writer, I started doing, I don't want to say like pointing out errors in like big books, but when I found an error in a book, I would highlight it and I could take a picture, highlight it in the picture and say, does this bother you? Would you have pointed this out for any reason, or would you have just skipped over it? And most people are like, I probably would have just skipped over it. And very few people are, even like, oh, I think that those things are distracting or pull me out. So it makes me laugh that when somebody self-publishes, it's a problem. It's an error that this comma didn't exist. Did you read the sentence? Did it make sense? Did you comprehend the words that were trying to be said? If that's the case, shut up. Just move on. If the word was supposed to be off and it says of, but you knew he turned the light of, clearly it was supposed to be off and somebody missed a key. I will say, when I wrote my first book, I remember reading through on a computer at least 4 or 5 times the whole way through. I remember going back through and adding edits in as far as, commas and punctuation and fixing things that my editor gave me. I remember going back through because she said the voice that you find from the beginning of your writing to the end of your writing is going to be different. So you have to go back through and add that kind of writing to the beginning so it's cohesive, because it's going to be like 2 different writers wrote it. And it's like, okay, cool. I went back and read it and rewrote again. Then I printed it out. So I had regular printer paper, reading through it that way to try and make sure, writing notes, edit marks, red pen, like you said, like all of those things. Then I fixed that stuff. Then I printed it out again. I've read through this probably 25, 30 times before you saw it. So yes, that word that's supposed to be off, I've probably skimmed past 15 times because I know he turned the light off. Yes. I'm sorry that I didn't catch the 1 F not there. Yes. You can take that 1 F and go.
Well, what really helped me is I'm a vocal processor, which is really annoying to the people that love me around me because I just have to talk about stuff all the time. But
same, girl, same.
Oh my gosh. So I had to, what really helped me was sitting down with my manuscript and just reading it out loud to myself, chapter by chapter. And, that even helped me. I'm like, if I can't speak this sentence out loud, maybe the mental gymnastics of reading this that you have to go through in your head to understand a process, I should probably change the sentence.
Pro tip, I downloaded, and I didn't do it. I think I only did it for my second book. And I think I've listened to my third book that way as well. I downloaded an app on my phone that would read PDFs. So but basically you upload your PDF to this app and it reads it just like an audiobook. You can, if you pay for the extra, you can get voices. Like I got like the free trial. So I did use some voices occasionally, but, I listened to my second book, be read back to me. And it was so weird because I heard it in terms of a different person reading it back. So when I was using a female voice, when she said certain words, it was like, oh, that sentence reads terribly. That doesn't make sense. So I could go back in and change it. And I think that improved my writing just because I can hear it. So you saying that, you read it out loud. I don't like reading out loud. It's a personal thing. I just don't like doing it, but there's ways around it. And, the fact that there's so much technology out there right now, there's all pivot. Find a way to push your craft in a way that's outside the norm. Those gatekeepers, those, supportive air quotes, Facebook groups, they can't make you think outside the box if they themselves don't think outside the box. I'm here to tell you that box is imaginary. There is no box. They want you to believe that there's a box so that they can keep you locked inside of it or keep what they want locked inside of the box. You can say, I got this box. I'm going to kick it down the street. I'm going to go the other direction and do my own thing. Okay, bye.
Absolutely.
So that's all I got to say. I like that you read it out loud. That is definitely a pro tip.
What's the name of
reading
that,
it out loud? I was trying to look it up, and I podcasting problems, doing stuff from my phone. I had to offload apps, and I don't think I have it now.
No, you're fine.
I have to
put it in the description or something.
Yeah, I will put it in the show. I will put it in the show notes. I think it was Speechify. I think that's what it was, but I don't remember. But I will put it in the show notes, and I will send you the name of it as soon as I find it. So like I said, it's one of those. I'm glad I did it. I also posted, which you are following that Instagram. It looks like a trouble screen on like an old TV where they were like emergency broadcasting. I recorded her reading a recording of exactly that. It was a warning on the TV, and the weird computery voice was reading it, and it sounded so authentic. And I just had to post it because it was like, it's so cool. Eerie.
That's so cool.
It's like, it sounds like it's supposed to. And I came up with the thing that it said, because obviously there's no emergency warnings for zombie apocalypses. So, that the fact that sounded as good as it did was, it was a triumph.
I have so many ideas that you just generated. So I definitely want to know that app.
Good.
Then everybody watch out on Instagram, because if there's going to be some fun material coming out from me, it's Matt's fault.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I like it. See, supportive, getting creatives together. Absolutely. This is what I love. This is what Homeroom is for. Like I said, we talk about it all the time. It's like Homeroom back in the day. You're a little young, so you might not have had Homeroom. I don't know what your school system did. Good. I didn't. They phased it out in some places. I know for me, it was like, we used to just, hang out for 15, 20 minutes before we did whatever we were going to do for the day. And, sometimes people told stories. Sometimes you were like, oh, bet I want to go check that out after I get out of school. And that's what this is about. That's what we're doing here. I also wanted to ask you, what was the hardest part about writing this book? And if you'd like, you can answer both, like the emotional side about it and the actual writing process. What was like the hardest?
Ooh, for me personally, it was facing my own demons to write it. Was facing my own demons, and also struggling with the fact of like feeling like I wanted to do justice to other people's experiences with everything, but ultimately having to let go of that. That was very difficult for me. Like specific to my siblings, I'm not the only person that was dealt these cards.
Yeah.
I'm not the only person that has lived this experience, and I wanted to do justice to them and their perspective and all those things. But also, I can't rush other people wanting to face their demons in the same time that I'm doing it. So
that's deep.
That was really difficult too, because it also translated as like, oh, well, they're not reading my manuscript. They must not support me. No, it took me 14 years to sit down and want to do all this, and more money than I can probably mention of therapy sessions to even get to the point where I could do this. Nobody else is on my timeline, and it is not healthy for me to expect that from other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the hardest parts for sure. Yeah.
That's man. I know my current book, what I'm writing is about as like by autobiographical as I'm gonna get. I don't like writing about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. I've always liked to write stories about, cool things and fun, exciting things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm writing myself as a character in this book, and things that have happened to me are happening to this character. And you'll actually, again, somebody that will appreciate it. He's a detective who is investigating a serial killing, and it's very much the climate of the world. If it's me in that situation, I'm already kind of standoffish and don't trust people. So everything is like dialed to, 11, because his job informs him to not trust because he sees so much. One of my favorite lines so far is, a lot of officers, drink or whore their way to something that they call normal. Me, I just go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, encapsulating of how you deal with grief. Is some people, they have to get it out of their system, either chemically or physically. And then other people, they just put it in a box and, move on with their day and figure it out. And, this character, he's so much me that I haven't decided whether I'm going to write my siblings into it or not, or if they're going to be, vague, shroudy characters that don't pop up, because I don't, we've all lived through the things that we've lived through.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that because it's yours is, almost, 100% factual. Like that's what it is. Mine is a story. So I don't know what liberties I get to decide for them, and how they approach something, and how they'll take that thing. So I completely get it. Just I took the consideration off the bat to not include them, because I don't know how I would write their feelings, because their journey and their emotions and what happened to them is their story, not mine.
Exactly.
And it makes it hard. So I couldn't imagine having to write that story.
Yeah. And
talking about the things that you learned.
Yes. I ultimately ended up putting a disclaimer in the introduction saying that, like, it's just a reminder that every book that's ever written is only from the perspective of the person that wrote it. Like,
absolutely. I love that.
So
I saw that you are Lexa Pro. Is that right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love Lexapro. And I talk about it in my book. I went from burying everything to saying that therapy was a stupid waste of money to now I am proudly and fully medicated.
Yeah.
And I go to therapy all the time. So
I love it. What would you say to someone that's unsure on making that decision, like whether, because there's a lot of things like that get a bad rap and people are worse off on it. And from what I've seen from people that I know, they've seen dramatic increase in like their ability to play with their kids or their dog or whatever it is. And if it's giving you that quality of life back, those things, for people who don't deal with depression, that don't deal with any kind of mental health, anything, those things like playing with your dog just seem like mundane. Like, why could you not play with your dog? But I kid you not, there are times where people look at their dog and they know, I want to play with you, but I can't. And the fact that it can give somebody back that joy or that feeling like I can do it, I definitely want to hear what you would have to say to somebody that is unsure on making that decision.
I definitely go. There's a whole chapter. Actually, there's a lesson in my book that is the lesson literally says that Lexapro saved my life. I was a completely different person a week into phasing Lexapro into my life. And whether it's Lexapro or not, I specific to law enforcement and specific to being raised by somebody who was in that mentality for a lot of his life. He made a shift after he saw, I think, the quality of our life improve after we did get serious about treating our mental health. It immediately made me so sad that I waited so long to do it. That's how much of a complete pivot it made in my life.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, it was. I say in my book how, well, if this is what everybody else gets to like, why is everybody so pissed off if this is how normal people feel like? And then I said, then I realized that, maybe everybody needs to be on Lexapro.
One of my friends just started it, and she made a comment about like how calm her mind was, and she was like, is this what everybody feels like? Mm-hmm. And I that stuck with me so hard, because there's people have tinnitus. I don't know if anybody knows what tinnitus is, but it's like a ringing in your ear. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that have it, they say that they only realize they have it when the ringing stops.
Yes.
So I feel like from what I've seen from friends and people that have started Lexapro, they realize how much wasn't actually their own inner monologue, how much of it was other things, and how much energy they were committing to things beyond what they could. And it wasn't because they were tired. It wasn't because they were overworked. It was because their body just couldn't regulate.
Yes.
And I think that is amazing.
My husband, was something that he also struggled with. There were days after my dad died that I just literally, I physically did not have the energy or the capacity to get my body out of bed. That's how bad my depression got. And I struggled with that. And I really struggled with my actions and how they affected the people that I love the most around me. That was difficult for me too. Postpartum, my breaking point was not watching my mom die in a crash. It wasn't, all of the PTSD that came after the crash. It wasn't any of that. My breaking point was postpartum. My sister told me that getting on Lexapro was the first call that I made as a mother, and it was the right one. It was the right call.
I like that.
I was home on maternity leave, feeling big feelings about being a mother for the first time, having zero control over my brain, which I struggled with because I was postpartum and was dealing with all the hormones and all the crazy stuff that comes with it too. But I was also feeling another wave of grief. You have these waves of grief. It's not like the funeral. I was a mom, and I was a mom that my mom wasn't around to see. My mom was never going to meet my child. My mom was never going to see me in this capacity. And that was a whole other thing of grief that I had to handle. 1 week into Lexapro, my infant daughter at that point actually started smiling. Her personality started coming out. And it was because it took getting beat over the head way too many times for me to realize that if I don't fill my cup first, if I don't get serious about treating my own shit, it's going to bleed over into my children. It's going to bleed over into every other aspect of my life. It's going to bleed over into all the relationships that I love and value the most. I went and told my doctor the very next week that my daughter has a personality, and it's cute. It's great. She's wonderful. She smiles. She laughs now. At that point, she was like 3 or 4 months old. She started giggling. We started having fun interacting with each other. When before I got serious about treating it, even going to therapy, before I got serious about treating my mental health at all in any aspect, we just sat and stared at each other on the couch waiting for my husband to come home from work every day. That was our life. It was awful.
Yeah.
But getting serious about mental health and treating it with medication or with therapy or with even just doing anything that kicked that steady routine and disrupted that cycle of toxicity that I was doing to myself. My life completely changed, and changed in all the best ways. And I didn't realize, just like your friend with tinnitus, or, that analogy with tinnitus, I didn't realize how bad it was until it wasn't anymore, and it made me so sad. But also, I had to be kind to myself. I had to be graceful to myself because, yeah, it's really sad that it took that long for me to learn that lesson and for my quality of life to improve. But it's better late than not at all.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And, if there's anybody out there struggling with, any kind of mental health, anything, no matter what it is, getting help is paramount, but not for me or your friend or your mom or your son or your dog. Getting help for you is the most important. And I know that the world is a much better place with you in it than with you not in it. And getting to that point is something that I can't stress enough as somebody that's been there. I don't want to have anybody listening feel like they're alone. I don't want anybody listening to feel as though there's nothing that they can do, because there are options out there. You just have to decide, I'm worth it, and find that one person. One of my favorite quotes from a previous interview is, find your people and just like let them pump you up. And if you can't find your people and nobody's pumping you up, unfortunately you do have to be your own cheerleader sometimes. And the first thing that you can do is, go get help. And
I'll be anybody's cheerleader. I'll be anybody's damn cheerleader. So if anybody's hearing this and you don't have people and you don't have a cheerleader, DM me on Instagram and I will give you the best hype up you've ever had in your life.
There you go. Good. That's why you're here. That is why you are here. And I like I said, I love everything you just said. Is such a powerful statement. And if even part of that energy is written in your book's a barn burner. It is the best thing that it can be, and I love that. So
there's a whole chapter about it, Matt. So I'm excited to hear your feedback, and I will just send me your address. I will absolutely send you a copy, 100%.
I'm gonna buy a copy. Get out of here. I already have it saved to my wish list. Only reason I didn't buy it earlier was because I would have been disappointed that it's like I can't read it right now before I do this interview. So I'm gonna wait until I do the interview. So
it was probably a better interview because you hadn't read it. So
exactly. I did read the back cover, and I read your bio on everything I could read your bio. And like I said, I like to do research, and I like to hit people with some stuff that I know about them, because I care about the people. I care about putting out good quality interviews, and I want the guests to understand that I'm here because I care, and I genuinely want to support, and not just like, here, pitch your product. Let me tell you some generic things. Why did you write? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? That's not fun. Nobody wants to listen to that. So I think that this conversation's been really good, and I most definitely want to stay in touch with you. But before we get to wrapping things up, I do have some this or that questions.
Yes,
for
this
you.
Or that. Let's do it.
All right. So first one's kind of a softball. Reading or writing?
Oh shit. Reading.
All right. I like that one. I wasn't expecting that to be the answer. Usually I try and guess what people are going to do based off of my read and research of them. I wasn't expecting that one to be the answer. So you surprised me.
I say reading. Well, you can see this is like 1/3 of my personal library over here. I've got 2 other bookcases that are out of frame. So I love to read, but also I don't like to be in my own head too much. So reading.
Yeah, I could see that. I like to listen to podcasts, and I like to, listen to audiobooks and things like that to try and get myself out. I'm also a builder, so I like to build stuff. My favorite time is when I'm creating something, because my mind is quiet, because I'm only thinking about this thing. So next one is, and this is really funny because I didn't expect this to go this way, and we've already kind of touched on it several times.
Okay.
And it's really funny that I chose this one because I wrote this at 10:30 this morning.
Okay.
So well before this. The universe has a plan, or it's just one big ball of shit happens.
Honestly, my response to that would depend on the day. Today it is everything. The universe has a plan.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I feel like my original read was it was going to be a big ball of shit happens, because it sounds like you've rolled with the punches and you've found a way to exist beyond what the world threw at you. But after talking to you, definitely, like, I was meant to see your post this morning, and you were meant to take that risk and be like, random person I don't know DMing me.
Yes. No, love it. And that's what I'm here for. I love it.
All right. And then the last one, we got finding your people or becoming somebody else's people.
Oh, shit. Becoming somebody else's people. Because through that, it's magnetic effect. You become somebody else's people and your network grows from there. But honestly, that would happen with both. Oh, that one's really hard, Matt. I think I'm going to still stick with find your people. Or no, become somebody else's people.
Yeah.
Because the personal development that gets out that I personally get out of being somebody else's cheerleader, even like so sidebar, I recently stumbled upon a whole new community of friends that I adore on Discord that I've never met in person before. And becoming their cheerleader turned around and led to them becoming my cheerleader too. Like these are awesome individuals that I never would have met otherwise. So again, I'm going to stick with becoming other people's cheerleaders because they will turn around and become yours after.
And this is, again, like I said, I assumed that was going to be your answer. And that was one that I saw you post about. And I was like, this is my kind of people, because I guarantee her answer is going to be becoming somebody else's people, because you're a supportive individual and you don't get as far as you've gotten in a creative space without being a supporter, because in your heart, I have to do this because I have to. Mm-hmm. There isn't a second option. I know when I started writing, there was no option to not see that through, mm-hmm. because somebody out there was going to be like, what, you wrote a book? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that was going to inspire them to be like, man, I can make that crocheted pot holder. If they could write a book, I could do that. So
yeah,
that's it.
Seriously, man, I'm living proof. If anybody can, if I can write a book, self-publish it, and put it on Amazon, anybody can. And yeah. Everybody has a story that needs to be heard.
#HomesRoom. That's what this is about, and that's why I'm doing this. I do have one last question for you. And this one, like you've stated that dark humor is something that you have come to appreciate. And I want to ask, what are some things that people shouldn't say to somebody who just lost a loved one?
What they shouldn't say is what they want to say the most, which is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What they shouldn't say is, I'm just so sorry. Everybody's sorry. And grief and trauma and loss is very lonely. So what you shouldn't say is, I'm sorry. What you probably can say is, what was their name? And just see where the conversation goes from there. Because odds are, even if the person is hurting and crying, they want to remember the good about that person that they lost. It's lonely. Yeah. Like I love talking about my dad and all of his dadisms, or his Donisms, as those that knew him and loved him call him. And he would say, hello, pot, meet kettle. He would say, want in one hand, shit in the other, and see which one fills up faster. I'm 28. He told me that so many times. I have no clue what that means. But he would say it to me all the time. But yeah, don't say I'm sorry, and ask that person's name, and ask them maybe what their favorite memory is with that person.
That's my favorite one. That's what I tend to do is, what's a good memory you have of them? What was like a silly moment? I tell my daughters all the time, I sing to them in the car. Like when we're driving, I like poke my daughter in her leg or smack her hand or whatever. When we're in the house, I'll, if my hand's wet, I'll wipe it across the back of the neck. Just all sorts of just crazy things. And they always look at me like I'm the dumbest person in the world. And I tell them all the time, when you're older and I'm not here anymore, you're going to remember those moments, or this song's going to come on the radio, whatever it is. And you're just going to be like, fucking dad.
Yeah.
And to me, that means I did everything I was supposed to do as a parent.
Speaking
And
from
that's all I
experience,
want.
I say fucking dad all the time. So
Yeah, I love it. I will say I do want to end on, you know, if you wouldn't mind, you know, what are a couple of your favorite things about your parents that you remember?
my mom loved cream horns. Those are mom's snacks. She would on a Friday night we would go to a local grocery store and get those. It's like the puff pastry just filled with creams. They're just called like
Hmm.
cream horns. She loved to eat those. She loved a snack. She it was difficult to find any good pictures of her after for her funeral because she would always like stick her tongue out or open her mouth with chewed up food in it.
I love it.
So it was
I
hard
love
to
it.
find a good picture of her just smiling. And my dad, uh, so many things, but his smell, his dad, big hugs, those were my absolute favorite. He always wore 5'11" tactical clothes, so
Yeah,
I love that. But also,
I can relate.
he would laugh his ass off at the amount of awful poop disasters that I've had since he's been gone. And still to this day, there are poop diapers from my toddler now who's like eating big people food that I open and I'm just like, and all I can hear in my head is his laughter laughing at me. Ha ha ha. Change that
That's
shitty
good.
diaper. So
I'm really glad that like his laughter is one of the things that sticks with you. That's one of those things that I know, like, when I look back at everything that I could do, I hope genuinely people remember me making a stupid joke or me saying, you know, that's what she said, just because that's my thing. Like, you know, and dark humor, like I said, I wanted to end it on a good note, and you'll get a kick out of this story. We were at a funeral. My aunt had just passed away. My other aunt, who's the matriarch of our family, she said something. I don't even remember what she said, but she just set up a that's what she said so fucking perfectly. So I looked over and she said whatever she said, literally mid-funeral. And I looked at my line of cousins, and my mom is one of 12 children. So I have a lot of cousins. I looked over and I said, that's what she said. And all of them just like looked at me like, I cannot believe you just did that right now, right here.
Oh, I love it.
And I just got the death glare from my aunt, who I don't think she understood what that meant, but also understood that it wasn't appropriate. And
Yes.
I couldn't not. And that's the thing that I remember about that the most is, you know, everybody looking at me. And I hope that, you know, 25 years from now, they will be telling a story and be like, you remember when Matt said that's what she said at a funeral? So I figured you would get a kick out of that.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Again, I do want to say, you know, my heart goes out to you for the loss that you've experienced, especially because it's, you know, it is so recent. And I love that you were brave enough to put out a book, you know, exposing yourself, saying that this is what I've gone through. These are things that I've learned, because you're filling some steps that somebody else might not have been able to even decide were steps yet. And I think that is amazing. You are clearly one of those people that were, you know, destined to find your way to Home's Room and, you know, express how supportive you are. I definitely want to stay in touch. If other people want to find you and, you know, want to find your book and all that, where can they find that? Where can they find you?
They can literally search Lessons I Learned from Two Dead Parents on Amazon is where you can find my book. Right now, as we film this, it's only available in hardcover for $20, but I want to do a more financially accessible version on paperback. So look out for that. Paperback and Kindle are coming soon when I have time to do it. And I'm most active on Instagram, and that's Caitlin_Uding.
And that stuff will be tagged in the show notes. And like I said, I thank you so much for being here. I hope that this was fun for you, because it was definitely a blast for me.
Thank you so much, Matt.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, Every day is a class. Go learn something.